A national title that could have been an ACC title that was given away in a blowout. The stories of the two teams in tomorrow's Discover Orange Bowl aren't really what you would expect coming into this. Usually these are teams that were close to the title and just had one or two things go wrong, but these two teams were oh so close this year. And the two teams I'm talking about are the Clemson Tigers and the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm going to start this video by talking about Clemson. Tigers went 10-2 this year, including 7-1 in ACC play. They came in with that big bowl win over LSU last year, and were looking to replicate that success and work their way up toward a national title. Unfortunately for them, it just wasn't meant to happen this year. They beat Georgia in a home opener that was a big win, 38-35, way back in August, and followed that up with some easy wins over South Carolina State, NC State, Wake Forest, Syracuse, and Boston College. Two of those teams even being bowl teams, but after that, in their ACC title more or less determiner against Florida State, they got blown out. Tosh Boyd had an off night, the whole offense struggled, and they got drilled 51-14. Really kind of ended any chance of a good season, of a, title-bound season for them. They dropped big in the rankings and knew they were going to have to claw their way back up. Thankfully for them, they were kind of able to. They beat Maryland next week 40-27 in their bounce-back game, beat Virginia, beat Georgia Tech's high-powered option offense 55-31, destroyed Citadel 52-6, and then they went into their rivalry game against South Carolina, the Gamecocks, looking to really establish themselves once again as the premier team that they believe to be. And once again, Tosh Boyd and that offense just struggled, only putting up 17 points, and they got beat 31-17. What I'm trying to get at here is this team had three big games all year, and they were able to win their first one against a tough, healthy at the time Georgia team, but after that, they just struggled in a way that a lot of people didn't think they would, and it really cost them down the stretch. I've mentioned Tosh Boyd, but in reality, their running game was what killed them in these big games. Only 172 yards a game, 62nd in the nation. McDowell had 956 yards and 5 touchdowns, but after that, their next best runner was actually Taj himself with 273 and 9 touchdowns. This team that struggled at times running the ball, and in games like Florida State and South Carolina, when they fell behind early and had to go to an all-passing offense because they couldn't run the ball effectively, really hurt them, and it made Taj Boyd look worse than he was. This dude had 329.3 passing yards a game, good enough for 11th in the nation. He was an amazing quarterback, and he helped this offense average 40.2 points per game, but they struggled with less than 20 against the two premier defenses they played. They gave up only 21.1 a game, which was really good, but once again, in the two big games they had, they gave up 51 and 31. And in the Georgia game, too, they also gave up 35. The offense was just clicking better that night. So this is a team that struggles at times in big games, but that might not work against them too much going into this, because they're playing another team that struggles in big games in Ohio State. I hate saying that about them because they actually did look good this year. They continued Urban Meyer's winning streak from last year. It got up to 23-0, I believe. No, 24-0 actually. In Urban Meyer's tenure, and they were the opposite of Clemson. They looked to do it with the run. 317.5 rushing yards a game, third in the nation. They ran some more, and then ran one more time. Carlos Hyde, 1,408 yards, 14 touchdowns. Braxton Miller, their quarterback, 1,033 yards and 10 more touchdowns. They could still air it out. While Braxton Miller struggled off and on with injury issues, he and Kenny Guyton combined for over 2,600 yards and 36 touchdowns. This was a high-scoring offense, third in the nation with 46.3 points a game. They only gave up 21.3 points a game, 22nd in the nation. And their big issue was really running the ball, or throwing the ball. They averaged 200.9 yards a game. It was 91st in the nation. And some teams that were able to give them some complications against the run were actually able to compete with them. Buffalo, in their very first game, they beat 40-20, but Buffalo competed for a little bit in that game. It's easy to forget that. They followed that up with huge wins, though. Beat San Diego State 42-7, team that won one of the early bowl games. They beat Cal 52-34, dominated Florida A&M 76-0, And then they entered Big Ten play, and though they struggled at times, they were able to gut out the whole conference schedule. They beat Wisconsin, who's 23rd, 31-24, survived at the time very scary Northwestern team, 40-30. They beat a stingy Iowa defense, 34-24. Obliterated Penn State, 63-14. Blanked the struggling Boilermakers of Purdue, 56-0. Beat Illinois, putting up 60. They put up 42 in a win against IU. And then that nail-biter finale at Michigan in the big rivalry game, that team up north, they were able to beat them 42-41. Michigan failed a two-point conversion at the end of the game. That game could have gone to overtime. Who knows who would have won, but that doesn't matter anymore. These guys, they're really stout on defense at times, although they've struggled in a couple games like that Michigan game. And their offense can struggle against some good defenses sometimes. And it showed in the Michigan State game when one of the best defenses in college football shut down Ohio State and beat them 34-24. Michigan State did to ruin what at the time were national title hopes as they were second in the nation and put them in the Orange Bowl. These guys are still a good team though. They're looking to come back and fight for Urban Meyer. Both they and Clemson struggled in their biggest games on the year, so it's hard to really make a true read on this teams. They're just a tick under national title contender teams. Ohio State's 3-point favorites on the spread. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that Clemson's going to be able to move the ball really well because they've shown the ability to move against some of the defenses that are more based on finesse than aggression. And Ohio State's defense isn't the most hard-hitting team I've seen. I think compared to an SEC defense or to even Florida State's ACC defense, I think that Ohio State's defense isn't quite as good. So I think Clemson's got a little bit of an advantage here with Taj Boyd throwing the ball because Clemson's going to be able to shut down the run fairly well. Um, Ohio State's a little better on third down. I think that's going to factor into this and really give Ohio State some longer drives. But Clemson has a little bit more big play ability with Taj Boyd back there throwing the football. So I actually kind of like Clemson to win this game. I think it's going to be very close. I think your score is going to be in the high 30s to low 40s even. I'm going to say 38-35 Clemson. I think a field goal early on in the second quarter or so is going to end up being the difference in the entire game, and they're going to beat the Buckeyes. And not really an upset, but a game they're projected to lose. I bet against Clemson last year when they played LSU, and I paid for it. I'm not making that mistake again twice. So give me the Clemson Tigers in this one. And either way, good luck to both teams. Great years for both teams. Can't wait to see what they do next year, and I hope everybody enjoys this game.